Good morning. This is Stephen Leake. I'm an elder at First Presbyterian Church of Mesquite, and I'm also the teacher of the Discipleship Sunday School class there. Today we're continuing with our study of the Gospel of John. And last week we began chapter 7, and we studied the reactions to Jesus when he went to Jerusalem to the Festival of Booths. And today we're going to kind of take a little side trip because our author, Professor William Barclay, thinks that today's lesson may have gotten misplaced and should actually be in chapter 5. Again, our curriculum is based on the daily Bible study series, and the version of the Bible that we're using for Scripture is the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. So our first Scripture reading today is John 7:15 through 18. The Jews were astonished at it, saying, "How does this man have such learning when he's never been taught?" Then Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking on my own. Those who speak on their own seek their own glory. But the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and there's nothing false in him." We've already had occasion to see that it's very likely that some parts of John's gospel have become misplaced. Maybe he never had time to fully put it in order, or maybe the pages on which it was written were assembled incorrectly. As these next two passages come here, they will hardly make sense, for they have no connection with their context. It's almost certain that they should come after John 5:47, which is the story of the healing of the helpless man at the healing pool. It was done on the Sabbath and was regarded by the Jewish authorities as a breach of that holy day. In his defense, Jesus cited the writings of Moses and said that if they really knew what these writings meant and really believed in them, they would also believe in him. The chapter finishes, "If you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe what he wrote, how will you believe what I say?" That from John 46 through 47. If we go straight from there and read John 15 through 24, our two passages today, it makes a clear connection. Jesus had just referred to the writing of Moses, and immediately the astonished Jewish leaders break in. "How can this fellow read when he's quite uneducated?" We will understand the sense and relevance of John 15 through 24 far better if we assume that it came after 5:47. The criticism was that Jesus was quite uneducated. It's exactly the same accusation that was made against Peter and John when they stood before the Sanhedrin in the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 13. Jesus had not been to rabbinic school. It was the practice that only the disciple of an accredited teacher was entitled to expound Scripture and talk about the law. No rabbi ever made a statement on his own authority. He always cited quotations and authorities for every statement he made. And here was this Galilean carpenter, a man with no training whatever, daring to quote and expound Moses to them. Jesus could very well have walked straight into a trap here. He might well have said, I need no teacher. I'm self-taught. I got my teaching and my wisdom from no one but myself. But instead he said, you ask who was my teacher? You ask what authority I produce for my exposition of Scripture? My authority is God. Jesus claimed to be taught by God. It is, in fact, a claim that he makes again and again. It's the same with the Christian life. If we wait until we understand everything, we'll never get started. But if we begin by doing God's will, God's truth will become clearer and clearer to us. We learn by doing. We will never understand it all, but if we start trying to live the Christian life, we will understand more and more of it as time goes on. In Christianity, as in all other things, the way to learn is to do. So let us remember that this passage really ought to come after the story of the healing of the sick man. Jesus has been accused of wickedness and that he healed on the Sabbath, and he goes on to demonstrate that he was seeking only the glory of God, and there is no wickedness in his action. Our next scripture for today, the second part of this, is John 7:19 through 24. Did not Moses give you the law, that none of you keeps the law? Why are you looking for an opportunity to kill me? The crowd answered, well, you have a demon, and who is trying to kill you? Jesus answered them, I performed one work, and all of you are astonished. Moses gave you circumcision. It is, of course, not from Moses, but from the patriarchs. And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath in order that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because I healed a whole man's body on the Sabbath? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with the right judgment. Before we begin to look at this passage in detail, we must note one point. We must picture this scene as a debate between Jesus and the leaders of the Jews, with the crowd standing all around. The crowd is listening as the debate goes on. Jesus is aiming to justify his action in healing the man on the Sabbath day and thereby technically breaking the Sabbath law. He begins by saying that Moses gave them the Sabbath law, and yet none of them keeps it absolutely. If he then breaks the law to heal a man, why do they, who themselves break the law, seek to kill him? At this point, the crowd break in with the exclamation, "You are mad." Then the crowd asks, "Who is trying to kill you?" The crowd have not yet realized the intense hatred of their leaders. They are not yet aware of plots to eliminate Jesus. And so they think Jesus has a persecution complex. They think that his imagination is disordered and his mind upset. Jesus does not answer this question of the crowd. His argument was that the law held that a child should be circumcised on the 8th day after birth. Obviously, that day would often fall on a Sabbath, and the Sabbath made allowances for circumcision on the Sabbath. So Jesus states, you say that you fully observe the law, which came through Moses, which lays it down that there be no work done on the Sabbath. He goes on to say, and under work you have included every kind of medical attention which is not necessary to save life. And yet you have allowed circumcision to be carried out on the Sabbath day. Now, circumcision is two things. It's medical attention to one part of a man's body. Further, circumcision is a kind of a surgery. It is actually removing something from the body. So Jesus argues, how can you blame me for making a man's body whole when you allow surgery on the Sabbath day? That is an extremely clever argument. Jesus finishes by telling them to try to see below the surface of things and to judge fairly. If they do, they will not be able any longer to accuse him of breaking the law. A passage like this may sound remote to us, but when we read it, we can see the key, clear, logical mind of Jesus in operation. We see him meeting the wisest and most formidable men of his day on their own terms, and we see him defeating them. That's all of our lesson today. Thank you for joining me. God bless you all.